Oh, we're live. Okay.
All right. Good morning. Hello, NextOppSocial family. Welcome to another live chat discussion here on the NextOppSocial channel. I am Richelle Wright Wilson, and as always, I'm joined by Jawan Buford. And today we're talking about mistakes, specifically um, why the mistakes that most of a lot of new and even seasoned entrepreneurs make, or what mistakes a lot of new and seasoned entrepreneurs make when building their business. So before we jump into it, though, if you're watching with us here, either live on the replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Should be right there. So you never miss an interview, a live, and never miss out on these incredible discussions that we have here at NextOppSocial. So while there is certainly no one path to success as an entrepreneur, there are definitely things we can avoid doing and learn from those who have already made those mistakes to help us move along faster or just easier a little bit. And while your journey, everyone's journey who's watching or listening as an entrepreneur, will not be possible at all without some mistakes, there are a few that can prove to be very costly down the line if you don't address them sooner rather than later. So let's jump in. Joanne, I know this is something you're talking about often. It's usually at the center of why people are reaching out to you in the first place, because one of your favorite phrases is you're fixing a lot of $5 haircuts, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And, ironic enough, I had a discussion yesterday that made the list. And, one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make, and I think almost all of us make this mistake in the beginning, is we don't respect data, right? We're not collecting data. So I was talking to, and what do I mean by that? I was talking to a business owner yesterday. She's starting up a restaurant. She's starting with the food truck with the ideal of transitioning into open up her own cafe and brick and mortar one day. Great, fantastic. Nothing wrong with that, right? Um, Here's the thing. People are buying her food. They are sending her text messages. They're giving her shout outs and they don't return though. They don't come back to buy more food. Or if they do, it happens infrequently, right? So I'm listening to her and I'm asking her, okay, trying to figure out what's going on here. And she said, I asked her, how are people finding out about you? They're finding out via social media and where she works at. That's how it all got started. Like a lot of individuals who are in the culinary arts industry, they're working somewhere, they start cooking something, family and friend makes a nice comment. They take that as a clue, they start working on, they start growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I discovered is I asked her when she's dealing with people, is she collecting their information? Is she collecting a phone number? Is she collecting an email? And the response was no. And I said, well, that's part of the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, at the end of the day, when you're first starting out and you start to move outside of your warm market, what you want to be doing is collecting data. You want to find out a person's email address, you want their phone number, you want to find out about their children, you want to find out about their anniversaries, you want to find out about their birth dates, you want to find out about their profession. You want to collect as much data as you can. Of course, do it in a way where it doesn't feel intrusive, but find creative ways to collect the data, right? I know there's a particular tool that individuals use for foreign transactions. And for whatever reason, it escapes me, right? The card readers the individuals use,
Mm-hmm.
which will literally collect that information. It'll ask them for it, right? And this is important, right? One of the recommendations I made to her, or I asked before I realized she wasn't collecting the data, I said, are you sending text messages to say, hey, thank you for being a client or a customer? Are you sending an email to these at least 100 individuals who've patronized you thus far, just to remind them, hey, this week I'm having this particular special, or by the way, if you bring a friend, right, if you refer someone, maybe I'll give you this plate and then 50% off, or maybe throw in dessert, or hey, if you like this plate, look, I'm so nice, I'm going to do it again for you. Instead, I'm going to give you 2 plates. Or maybe it's a situation where you find other ways to reward and incentivize individuals to come back to you. But the bottom line is you need to be touching people frequently, right? Particularly when you're first starting out, you're not a brand yet, you're building your brand. And keep in mind, you have a million other people competing for your same clients, competing for their disposable income. I noticed this when I walk into a clothing store. I notice this when I walk into a shoe shine shop or a shoe store. I notice this when I walk into a jewelry store, even a dealership. This was first brought to my attention, the importance of collecting data, which means you probably need to invest in a customer relationship manager, right? A CRM. Years ago, when I first started out as an investment advisor, there was a gentleman who owned a clothing store out in Southfield. I was still commuting from Ann Arbor. I was attending U of M and building my practice as an investment advisor at the same time. And it was a long drive, to go from Ann Arbor to Southfield. That's a good 45, 50-minute drive, depending on traffic. And so let's just say I didn't have an incentive to go to this clothing store, which was further north than Southfield. But I remember like it was yesterday, I walked into this gentleman's shop. We started conversing and talking. And I didn't think anything of it because he was so nice and so cordial. We start talking about our children, start talking about family, my professional background, what he did as a living. I remember his background. I remember he has 2 children. He was an attorney at the time, he was working at a firm that ended up becoming a client of mine, which is kind of weird, 2 years later. But in respect, I know his background. I know why he started the clothing store. We were kind of swapping stories, just information about each other. And I'll never forget this. I remember a couple months later, I received a gift card in the mail. And the gift card and the happy birthday card was not for me, it was for my daughter. Then shortly after that, I received a gift certificate to my favorite bookstore in Detroit. At the time, it was the Truth Bookstore, which was located in Northland, right? Then I received another card months later on down the line, happy anniversary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I wasn't married at the time. It was an anniversary card for the moment that I started up my business. And I remembered that and I carried that with me. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why data is important. People do business with folks whom they like, know, and trust. And if you want that repeat customer, if you want individuals to come back and continually patronize you, you have to have a relationship with someone other than them just simply being a transaction. Learn about them, right? Begin to kind of pinpoint what zip codes are majority of your customers coming from. Begin to pinpoint what professions or trades are they involved in. Find out what hobbies or civic organizations they may be a part of. You want to get this information. This stuff is invaluable. And look, no judgment. Most entrepreneurs, unless you have someone who's coaching you and talking to you about these things, you're not thinking about these things in the beginning, right? You're just trying to hurry up and get some customers, trying to earn some income, trying to prove the viability of your business. But these are the things that will keep you in business. And these are the things that will allow you to take your business to a higher altitude, as opposed to hitting that rut that I know the majority of micro business owners in particular hit, right? You get started, you take on a couple of customers and clients, you start depleting that warm market. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, my business is going down again. What's next? Right? What do I need to do next? Right? And this is one of those important things that will help you continue not just to build your business, but long-term build your brand.
Yeah, I see this a lot too, where people will come to me, they're looking for marketing help, and at the top of their list, their goal is that I just need to get more customers. I need to get more clients. And then right beneath that, it's I need to get more followers on Facebook. I need to get more people on Instagram. I need to get, whatever. And to a certain extent, that's probably true, right? But at the same time, a lot of times I'll have people come to me who've maybe been doing this a year or two, if not longer. They've built up a following, but they haven't cultivated that following. So in the sense of like, okay, we'll look at their Instagram. Maybe they've got, almost 1,000 followers, right? Or 700 followers or whatever. And I'll explain to them, well, if you had all 700 of these or all 1,000 of these people as your customers, what would you need to find any more ever? Would you be busy enough? Right. And that kind of puts this light bulb moment where they think they need like 10,000 people following them, or they need all this attention on what they're doing. When the reality is they need to focus on the few that are doing it, that are already interested in them. Right. So yeah, it's super important, especially if you're in a position where you're like, I'm not getting repeat business, are you implementing an email marketing process, right? And you were talking about a CRM. Well, if a CRM is already feeling very overwhelming to you, because they can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to be, but they can be with setting up. Just the act of email marketing, right? Just the fact of emailing people on a weekly basis. Here's what I have. And it can be a mass email, right? But most email marketing platforms at this point also have an SMS, a text feature, a reminder feature in that way. So you can just automate and implement a lot of these things. It doesn't have to always be, you should absolutely be individualizing and learning people as individuals as well, because yes, that's always going to help you. But take care of some of that consistency by doing things on a larger scale, by emailing everyone every week, sending that text reminder to everyone every week. It's funny you brought up the restaurant too, because I'm actually just helped a food client who does meal prep and catering, that I have been patronizing myself for the past over 2 years. And even since she started, I was completely baffled that this entire process was handled through just text messages. I would text my order, she'd send me a PayPal link, and that would be it every week. And I was like, the marketer in me was just cringing extremely bad. I'm just like, oh my God, we need a website. Oh my God, this can be automated, right? And save you so much time. But the reason why she has, but a big part of why she's exponentially grown so quickly is because she was doing it one-on-one with everybody every week. Every Monday she'd send out a menu. Every Wednesday you get a personal text reminder to put in your order. And she did it every freaking week. And she still does now, but it's just automated at this point. And it is pretty amazing how quickly you can grow when you do that, when you spend that time doing that. So yeah, I think that is just super, super important. It's also, remember to, when you say data too, of collecting data, your Instagram followers are not your data. Your Facebook followers are not your data. You don't own any of that. So when you are collecting email addresses, phone numbers, those are yours until that person decides they don't want to hear from you anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really, really, really important to have that data.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You know, something else that I'm thinking about too, and the reason why I'm so adamant about this is because, look, when you're first starting out, you're beta testing. But at some point, you should begin to get a good idea of who your target market is. And if you know who your target market is, you know how they like to receive information. You know what venues or mediums to contact them and how to reach them. You begin to identify that quote unquote buyer persona. That's another word I hear utilized quite frequently. Once you know who your buyer persona is, who are the individuals who are really checking for you and how they want to be contacted, oh my goodness, you save so much money and time, right? As opposed to trying 5 and 6 different strategies. And, you know, you're basically just spraying out into the world and hoping something sticks. That's not a good way to do business, right? Everyone, of course, if they have a disposable dollar, depending on the nature of the business you're doing, is ideally a potential customer or client. But man, when you find out who that target market is, that buyer persona is, it makes your life so much easier. And it's very inexpensive to do it in the beginning, which is why I'm harping on this so much. It gets very expensive and time consuming and annoying to do it on the back end. So yeah, I encourage you 100%, Rochelle, particularly that piece about, you know, I tell people all the time, you need to have some real estate that you own out there, right? You don't own LinkedIn. You don't own Facebook. You don't own Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all that stuff, right? They can change your algorithm. They can decide they don't like you anymore. I mean, a lot of things can happen. And I've seen it happen where business owners were just crushing it. And then they fall out of love, or the platform falls out of love with them, or algorithm or something changes. They lose all those contacts. They lose all those customers, and now they're dead in the water. Man, that's the worst. So yeah, I mean, all this is interrelated. You know, the other thing that I see happen frequently with new entrepreneurs is this. The metaphor I'm going to use is when you jump into a plane, when a plane first starts to take off, it's kind of smooth. There's little bumps here and there depending on what airport you're taking off from, but it's pretty smooth. But then as soon as that airplane starts to take flight and get off the ground, you start feeling the turbulence, right? It starts shaking a little bit. That's when people kind of start looking at each other if they haven't been on a plane before. You can immediately identify the individuals who are flying for the first time. They start clutching stuff. Anyway, I'm done. Looking out the window. In any respect, there's turbulence, right? And that plane is going to continue to endure turbulence until it gets to a comfortable altitude where it can begin to coast, right? When you're first starting as an entrepreneur, the process is very similar, right? There's going to be some turbulence. There's going to be some changes. Your schedule's going to change. People are going to start behaving differently. You're going to start behaving differently. I mean, there's just going to be a lot of challenges. Gravity is going to work on you. And the biggest mistake entrepreneurs will make is they'll start earning money in their business, right? But earning money and having built a business and a system that will duplicate itself is two different things, right? So individuals will earn, let's say hypothetically, the person's accustomed to earning $50,000 a year, right? And W-2 income, which really spends like 35, right? Mm-hmm. And then they start up a business, and let's say their first 6 months, they crush it. I mean, they start earning an extra $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 per month, or they have a $5,000 day, or whatever the case may be. And look, it's easy to get excited. It's like, wait a minute, I can walk away from JLB, right? And they take a breath, right? They exhale for a moment, not realizing they haven't reached a comfortable altitude. It's akin to the plane not having reached a comfortable altitude. And if that plane doesn't reach that altitude, it might start running into some trees. It might hit a mountain. It might hit a house or a skyscraper, right? It's got to get to a good enough height. In your business, you have to do the exact same thing. So, I always cringe when I'm watching these videos talking about balance, and I'm watching these videos talking about self-help and pampering yourself. And look, all those things are important, but understand the stage that you're at when you're in business. And when you're starting out, look, you have to sell out. If you're going to use this business really as a means to replace your income, or you need it to become your primary income, you can't take a breath till you reach an altitude. And what is that altitude? When you have systems in place, when you have enough savings, when you generate enough return business where you're not having the challenge of where's my next customer coming from. Until you resolve those matters, you got to hit the go button and don't stop. So there's a discussion needs to be had, right? You need to have the conversation with the family. You need to have the conversation with your friends. You need to have the conversation with yourself. Look, I can't go out with you Friday anymore. I'm not going to watch Games of Thrones or whatever else is on television nowadays, right? I'm not going to spend time doing it. You got to have a conversation with the kids and the family. Like, I normally on this day or at this time of day, I normally do A, B, C, and D. But look, for the next 2-3 months, we can't do that, right? But there's going to be reward at the end. But know that mom or dad has to kind of handle A, B, C, and D for a little while so we can have all the things that we want, right? That's another thing that I see happen quite frequently with entrepreneurs. They get really excited after having a little bit of success. They pump the brakes, right? They start chilling, or they start spending money on the nice car, the nice vacation. They want to take their friends out. They start splurging, and then they start hitting some rocks, right? They start hitting some trees, and then the drama starts. So that's something else that, I encourage people to reflect real hard and long about when you're first starting out as an entrepreneur, like account for these things.
Yeah. Another thing I see that goes along with that is like, this is absolutely something that's happened to me where I'm having a lot of inquiries, or I have a lot of projects set up, or I've got a lot of work happening, and I'm so focused on either the work and what I'm doing that I forget that this work is going to end and I'm going to need new projects and new clients potentially afterwards. But because I'm so inundated with what I'm doing, I stopped marketing, and I stopped reaching out, and I stopped actively always thinking about what's coming next. And then what came next can happen. And I'm just like, oh crap, I have nothing. Right. And I'm stalled here. So I think that's important to remember too, is that when you're having that success in that moment, think very critically about how can I make this last longer, right? What do I need to do to instill this for however long, this can be, or what do I need to do with these individuals to get my referrals, to keep these projects going, things like that. I'm at a point now with my business that if I can't, at the minimum, because most of my work is project work, if I can't at the minimum project at least a quarter out from wherever I'm at, of knowing like, here's what's lined up, here's what's happening, then I have not been doing enough outreach and marketing, period. Because I know I will hit a point, just from habits I've done before. I know I'll hit a point where, yes, I understand I'm busy right now with client work, but if I don't keep this going, I'm going to be panicking in 3 months, or 2 months or whatever. So I think that's really important as well. Like when I talked about this in a few lives ago, or last live, that especially with the pandemic, everything came to a screeching halt, even for myself with work. But that didn't mean, or client work at least. But that didn't mean I stopped working. It was insane outreach all the time. And now I've gotten to a point where I'm busier than I've ever been, and that's great. But I also know that could disappear tomorrow. This year has proved that it can disappear. Everything can disappear tomorrow. So I'm still out there making my connections, even when I have, hours of work that needs to get done. I still need to be doing my networking. I still need to be lining up new projects and making time for those conversations, so that I don't hit those, feast and famine cycles anymore. So really important.
Yes. Yes. And, you hit the nail on the head. This is something that's applicable to even those of us who are established, right? We hit those lulls. And look, let's be transparent, because it's painful. It is painful to be constantly marketing, constantly doing whatever you're doing to generate your revenue or generate prospects, and then do the work at the same time, right? But you have to be willing to run to the pain. You got to be willing to go through the sleepless nights. You got to be willing to go through the sacrifice. You got to be willing to do these things to get to a certain altitude where, if you do take a day or a week off, or if you do take a break from constantly prospecting, your business is still selling, right? You've put processes in where business is still coming in, things are still duplicating. And I can't share that enough. I know I've made that error in judgment on several occasions. I've seen it happen so many times. And then, once again, I'm just going to say this because I know there's a certain person that's listening who needs to hear this. When you buy a car, until that car is paid off, you don't own that car. You own a loan, right? If you are buying your clothing on credit, you don't really own that clothing or that vacation you took. You just bought it on credit. You just created another boss, right? Look, man, invest in your business, but personally live skinny, okay? Don't go out and acquire a residence, an apartment, or try to live somewhere, and it's like over 30, 40, 50% of every dollar you're bringing in as a business owner. That's a recipe for failure. Because, I know what it's like to have a $30,000 day in business. I know what it's like to have a $1 month. And we've all been there, okay? Don't put yourself in a situation where you cannot survive the $1 month. So, all right. The other thing that I see a lot is business owners when they're first starting out is they're very nonchalant about the foundation. And what do I mean by that? Here in the state of Michigan, you go to LAR, you pay your $50 or your $100 if you want to expedite, right, to get your CID number. You go to irs.gov.website, you provide the number, your information, you answer some questions, you have your EIN. Now, all of a sudden, you're entrepreneuring, right? You own a business. No, no, you don't, okay? There are some things you need to understand. If you are a LLC, the self-employment tax is real. You'll end up owing Uncle Sam up to 40% of everything that you earn. It's not a good look. If you have an S Corp or C Corp, it can get real problematic real quick. If you don't know what reasonable income is, in particular with an S Corp, how to utilize non-taxable dividends to reinvest in your business. In other words, you don't have good consultation around you about these matters, get in a lot of trouble. have cash flow issues, the whole 9 yards, right? You need to know these things. Let's go simpler. Commingling money. You need to understand, right? And I'm not going to front. When you're first starting out and you don't know any better, or sometimes it's just a necessity, you're going to commingle money. It is what it is. But at a certain point, when you reach a certain altitude, that has to come to an end. And you need someone to sit down with you and kind of have a conversation with you about what that process looks like. Not having an operating agreement in place, not having partnership agreements in place, not having a non-circumvent or a non-compete or NDA in place. These things matter. Not having an estate plan in place. And I'm going to give 2 examples about why these things matter. I remember it was several plus years ago when I was still operating as an investment advisor. A lady came into my office, and I've known her for a number of years, and her husband had died. And her husband was previously married. So it was her husband's previous wife and his stepchild that are the characters in the story. Bottom line is the husband dies. He has dealerships. He has real estate interests all over the Midwest. He dies, and as a result of not having the estate plan in place, the ex-wife and the stepson ends up inheriting 75% of all the assets. She ended up inheriting a restaurant, which I don't know if that's something you want to inherit, depending on if you have any experience in the industry at all, and inheriting the sick mother that was on dialysis, needing $60,000 a year of caretake. And at the time, the health insurance situation wasn't in order. These things happen. Mm-hmm. Family drama happens, right? You start up a business, your family's involved in it. People aren't clear about what their roles and responsibilities are. You have family members who just see the business as a piggy bank. They're really not committed to the mission or the vision. And you don't have these documents in place. Bad news, man. Bad news. And I know you think it's your family, but I'm going to tell you, when money starts rolling in, sometimes it'll show you some things about people that you weren't aware was there, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think stress or money changes people. I think it reveals people, right? It empowers people, or it opens doors that you didn't know. You know, there were certain monsters hanging out in the closet, right? These things are important. People fall out of love with each other in business. They just do. They don't want to be involved with each other anymore for whatever reason, or they fall out of love with the business itself. You need to have these things in place. You need to have a discussion about what do we do. At some point, the discussion needs to be had. What do we do when we fall out, if we should fall out of love? What does the buyout look like? Or how do we deal with the business, right? All these different things are imperative, and it's just things that people don't do that cause the most havoc. You know, I'll give you another example. Actually, I can go on and on, but there's another example that's really a problem right now, and it occupies a lot of my mind. But there's a client of mine, once again, a parent died, didn't have their affairs in order, and so the kids are inheriting real estate. The real estate's all over the place. They're having trouble finding it. The family's finding out about it. Everybody wants their piece. They inherited a couple businesses, and some of the kids want this business, the other kids want the other business. There's no accounting for who has the skills or that business acumen to run it. It's just a hot mess, right? It's just a mess from top to bottom. And I'm here to tell you, the only people who win in situations like this are attorneys and probate court, right? The bottom line is the judges and the attorneys are going to be there to entertain the arguments. And when the dust settles, it ain't going to be too much of anything left if there's mad conflict going on. So understand this, right? Choosing the LLC versus the S Corp or operating as a DBA has serious consequences. Look, I know you're making Google decisions. I know you're talking to family and friends who may have your best interests, but if they don't specialize in these areas and they don't understand the consequences of operating as a DBA versus the LLC, you must have that conversation, because look, shit happens. I'm not just talking about death, disability. I'm just talking about all myriad of stuff happens. Lawsuits very rarely have anything to do with merit or principle. Someone who's mad at you, they're trying to get even with you, trying to get over you, they don't want to pay you. Depending on how you have your business structured will determine what happens next, right? So these are the things I wish people would really focus on. You know, the other thing, and I'll leave it at this, you're gonna have people who want to come into your life who want to partner with you and work with you, once again, who see your business as a piggy bank. They just see it as a means to earn money. Mm-hmm. But you have to surround yourself with people who are about the mission, not just the commission or the compensation. Surround yourself with people who believe in the work that you're doing and who want to help you scale that work and that influence. Big mistake to make is to partner with people in the beginning who really just aren't vested that much in the mission of the company and the work that you're doing. Don't do it.
Yeah. People's actions speak a lot louder than their words. If someone is actually that invested in what you're doing, they're going to stick around regardless. They're just so let people prove themselves to you the first time.
Yes.
I think that's super, super important. Yeah, it's also really important to, if you have a friend in business or you have another family member in business and they've set up their business this way and they've done this that way, that doesn't necessarily mean that you just now copy what they did because that's going to work for you. It's really, like you said, it's important to understand how you have to set up what you're doing that's going to work best for what you're doing.
Yes.
I've had people ask me all the time, which I think people just think I know things, but like, how do I do I set up my business this way or that way? And I'll be like, I can't give you that answer because you need to have a professional guide you based on your entire life situation on how that should work,
Yes.
So yeah, super important that it's not just filling out the Michigan paperwork, the federal paperwork, and calling it a day.
Yeah, much more involved than that. The next thing that I see out here, and I know it's if particularly some of my clients are watching this, I know it's gonna make some of them mad, but I have to go there. We have this thing, particularly, a lot of my clients are immigrants or first generation here. I don't see this too much with them, but definitely, my clients that don't have that experience. Here in the US, we have this thing where we talk about follow your passion. Do the things that you love, right? And I'm not knocking that. But what I also want to share with you is this. What if your passion is just sitting on the couch and drinking beer all day? That can be your passion.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It might not be a good idea to try to monetize that activity, right? I have, since I adopted my intermittent fasting diet and a whole bunch of other stuff, I don't drink wine anymore. It hurts my heart, but I don't touch wine. But I do enjoy wine and I enjoy long runs. That's not a good combination. I don't think I'm here to monetize that. I enjoy, and I know other people there are people who enjoy laying on the beach doing nothing and sipping on pina coladas. They're passionate about it. They love it, but you might not be here to monetize that. What am I saying to you? What I'm saying is this. Take inventory of what you're good at. Take inventory of your skills, your strengths, the knowledge that you have. I remember we did an interview, it feels like maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago with Anna, otherwise Miss Glenika Hubbard. And her story was so informative to me, right? She's working in a plant dealing with logistics and packaging and things like that. And it could have been very easy for her to say, look, let me go out here and start up a hair salon. Let me go out here and start up a t-shirt and gym shoe company. Let me go out and try to start up a restaurant. But to her credit, she was cognizant of the fact that, wait a minute, I do have a certain knowledge that people don't have. I understand delivery, logistics. I understand pricing. I understand wholesale versus retail. She learned all these things from that job, right? And that served her well today as a wholesaler, right? She stayed in her wheelhouse. So what I'm saying to you, if you're listening to this, is following your passion is important, but don't get it twisted, right? If you know nothing about the restaurant industry, you've never been a server, never been a manager, you don't even enjoy going to restaurants, you probably should not start up a cafe or a restaurant. I'm just saying, right? Just being real.
Yeah.
You may love watching movies, but if you've never held a camera, you've never held a recorder, you've never held the equipment, you don't understand it, you've never written a play or screenplay or did any screenwriting whatsoever, you've never done any acting, you don't have any of that formal training, look, There's a book out there called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I love that book because it speaks to that, right? How you have these business owners that seem to emerge out of nowhere having all the success. But if you take inventory of them, you find out because of certain life experiences or certain jobs they had before or a type of situation they grew up in, certain things are kind of inculcated into them. And these tools, these talents that have been over the course of time refined, end up serving them in the businesses they're starting up.
Right.
And so that's something I really want people to understand. Like, I see people starting up these businesses that they're really passionate about, and I'm not one to defecate in someone's cornflakes. So I'll politely ask questions, to find out whether or not they've taken the time to do inventory, to see that they really have the talent and skills to pull it off. And so I'm not saying don't follow your dreams. I'm just saying sit down with someone who's practical, who has your back, who loves you, supports you, wants to see you do well, believes in you, and make sure you have the skills to pay the bills.
I think this, when you started bringing this up as well, immediately I started thinking about how we, especially in American culture now, and the idea of just having hobbies that you do for fun is not something that is emphasized anymore. Because unfortunately what happens is that you have a hobby and either you or someone around you is like, you're so good at that, you should do that for a living. You're so good at that, you should make money doing that. And that is not to say that that can't be true, but it is also okay to just have that as a hobby that makes you happy. When I think about like the end game, right? What am I striving towards? Truthfully, Joanne, I am striving towards being able to wake up and leisurely live my day and read a book. Like that's what I'm striving towards. Like the ability to take care of myself and read all day long, right? Yeah, I'm not going to monetize that, but I'm monetizing other things to do these hobbies, right? My background's in music. I've been playing piano since I was 3 years old. I've been competing since I was 5. I went to school for music. You want to talk about trying to monetize a hobby, right? Like trying to be a musician for a living is very difficult. I also went to music ed school, and I got into marketing after bouncing around the country and being a music piano teacher at music schools and watching so many of these schools fail because they were musicians who thought, well, I'm a musician and I've worked in music schools, I can open up my own. I'm going to cut out the middleman. And they weren't, these are people who were seasoned in their craft and they still couldn't do it. So it's super, super important to also just remember that it is okay to have a hobby and enjoy that hobby. In fact, I would encourage you to not try and monetize all your hobbies so that you have something else that you can do that just feels fun for no reason except for it feels good. That's it. So that has taken, especially as a musician who tried to be I still teach here and there, but my lifelong dream was to be a concert pianist. Obviously I am not, right? And I'm okay with that, but coming to that hard reality of like, this is not how I'm going to live my life this way, struggling as a, concert pianist musician. There are plenty who do that and they do it successfully and that's great, but that's just not going to work for everybody. And understanding that you can still enjoy the work that you do. It doesn't have to be your absolute passion in life. It's okay.
Yes. I think about the fact that people typically enjoy what they're good at, right? People typically start to become passionate and really enjoy what they're good at. And that's, at the end of the day, I think that's what I want people to focus on, right? Be aware of that. Because here's the thing. Once again, if you're doing it for the money, here's the thing. People don't pay $5 prices for White Castle. Right? People don't want to pay 5-star prices for White Castle. And you have to be passionate enough enjoy what you do enough, be good enough, be able to improve enough to become elite. If you're going after 5-star prices in the business endeavor that you're in, right? If that's the goal, to become elite, you have to be passionate, invested enough in the thing to pay the price to become elite, right? I used to listen to people, and still do periodically. I'll hear someone complain about how these basketball players make all this money, right? They do all these different things and they make all this money. It's not fair. It's not right that they're entertainers. Well, you take your ass in that gym and wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and shoot the same shot repeatedly over and over and over and over again for 3-4 hours straight, right? You spend time recovering from hernias and recovering from broken bones and recovering from pulled groins, right? You go outside, stand in your driveway and run at your garage full speed and then turn around and do it again repeatedly a good 20, 30 times. Mm-hmm. You do that and then come back and tell me how much you think you should be compensated for that, right? For being willing to put yourself through that. There requires a certain elite degree of commitment and elite degree of desire to be willing to put yourself through certain things to get compensated that type of money. And look, entrepreneurship, I like using sports analogies. I think entrepreneurship is oftentimes very similar to it. It's the same thing, right? You know, the other thing that I think people don't reflect on, or the error in judgment people make, is, and we chuckle about this all the time, look, be careful about Facebook, Instagram, social media. People are showing you their best lives. They're not showing you the price they're paying for the things that are going on, right? And the reason why I share this is because you get caught up in the accoutrements. You think the fame, the attention, all these other things are entrepreneurship. No, those are just products. Those are byproducts of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is oftentimes a game that you're going to spend a lot of time alone. It can be a lonely experience being an entrepreneur. Because if you think about it, if you're really committed to your thing and you're really urgent about it, you're spending a lot of time up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m. You know, you're spending time when people are asleep. I remember a friend of mine reached out to me on Facebook and said, I need some new friends. I'm having insomnia. I said, start befriending some entrepreneurs. You'll be okay. Right? Yeah. You'll find plenty of people up with you at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I promise you, you know, some entrepreneurs, right? And so because of that, why am I sharing this? You have to like yourself. You got to, because you're going to spend a lot of time sitting with yourself, thinking about things about yourself, working by yourself, and you have to protect your thoughts. Mm-hmm. And you have to make sure that you're reading and consuming things throughout the day. So when you're having those quiet moments, you know, your spirit, your head is right, your attitude is right. You have to remember to work on yourself. You have to get to know yourself because you're going to be alone. Right? You're going to be alone. I'm telling you, you're going to have family members and friends who support you, but you're going to have a lot of moments where you're by yourself and you have to make decisions, and it's just on you. You have to become acutely aware of your strengths and avoid the temptation to run away from your weaknesses and run away from the things you don't like about yourself. You got to come to a place of real, brutal honesty with yourself. And, you know, they say success is an inside job. Nothing could be truer when it comes to entrepreneurship. And that's something a lot of entrepreneurs just don't understand. Look, if you have issues, I'm just being real. This is not the ridicule or any of that. I'm just being real. If you have certain challenges with how you feel about yourself and your self-concept, you got to address that. Mm-hmm. You got to deal with that. You got to find people who can help you deal with that. That part of entrepreneurship is often neglected, and it has serious consequences later on down the line.
Yeah. There's just like the average person, okay? Like the average person is consuming millions and millions and millions of pieces of content a day. Mm-hmm. If you're an entrepreneur, you might as well just at least double that, because you're spending time marketing yourself or marketing your business or putting stuff out there, and you just have to be on and available to do that. So now you are indirectly consuming more content by just doing that. Right. Yes. So it is super, super important to be, mindful of those moments and times that you do that and structure that time. And I think taking care of your mental health is just something that you're going to put yourself through the ringer, and you're going to have seasons where maybe you're mentally doing better than others too. So it's important to know that that's not just like a one-time fix and all done, right? It's like something you got to come back to as well. So I agree.
Yeah. I know we're coming up against it in terms of the time, but the other thing, because you already know I got the laundry list, I'm just checking off based on where our conversation is taking us. Don't be intellectually obtuse. Stay curious. I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day. She's very highly compensated professional, considering entrepreneurship. She's made great income, real valuable skill sets, real valuable talents, real valuable training. And she called me up for a reason. I told her, I said, you're not ready. And she got upset, but we continued to have the conversation. I said, you need to understand why I'm telling you you're not ready. I said, I don't hear intellectual curiosity and hunger in you. You kind of think you know it all already. Mm-hmm. And I told her, there's a reason why if you read Warren Buffett's, some of his quotes, Bill Gates, some of these individuals who achieved a high degree of success, there's something that they say frequently and often in their autobiographies and biographies, that there's this trend that you see, this theme. And what they oftentimes say is that they'll hire an MBA, but they'll never do business with one. They'll never make an MBA a partner. And I brought that to her attention. She says, well, why is that? And I said, look, at its essence, we as entrepreneurs are problem solvers. And those of us who win, we win because we see the problems before everyone else. And we come up with the solutions before everyone else. That really is what entrepreneurship is. It's identifying the value prop first and coming up with the solution first, and then going in and creating your competitive advantage. We live on the fringes, right? You see this with large companies all the time where, let's take Blockbuster versus in how Netflix just obliterated them, right? They got really comfortable with their business model. And they reached a point where the individuals working for that company were more vested in the business model than solving the problems of the clients. Because if they were spent their time thinking about the problems and thinking about what people really wanted, they wouldn't have gotten eviscerated by Netflix, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we do as entrepreneurs, and that's how we stay successful. Look at what transpired during this pandemic. This turned a lot of people's lives and their businesses upside down. The most successful entrepreneurs had the flexibility and the ability to adapt and learn on the fly, right? To see what was going on the ground and say, wait a minute, this need is slowly but surely showing its head. I need to pivot, or I need to change what it is that I'm doing and learn something new, acquire new skills, surround myself, and do what I need to do to meet that particular need right now. That's entrepreneurship. And so if you are intellectually obtuse, you're one of those you think you know it alls. There's a song out there by Outkast. I think it's Rosa Parks was the name of the song. And Andre 3000 talks about, was it Equimini? Anyway, it was one of those tracks. It was on the Equimini album. Okay. And he talks about, look, if you stay focused on the past, you'll be a Haswhat, right? You'll be a Haswhat. Your past performance, your past achievements, your past everything has nothing to do with what's going on. It's like stock market. Past performance has nothing to do with, with what's going to transpire in the future, right? So you got to take that attitude as an entrepreneur too, right? Don't ever, for the moment you think you know it all, your goose is cooked. Somebody is going to come and beat you up. They're going to knock your teeth out your mouth.
Well, and one thing that you can just guarantee at all times as an entrepreneur is that it's going to change.
Yes.
Everything's going to change. Everything you know about everything's going to change. And I think about even in my own industry and marketing, if I decided to be stagnant in what I did, oh my gosh, like it changes. Everything is going to change. Everything. The way you do business is going to change. Even if your business itself at its core does not change, how you do it will change. That is a guarantee for you, period. And if you don't keep up with that and adapt, you will get left behind, just period.
Yeah. And just like you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you take a bath, hopefully at some point in the day. You have a designated time where you do these things. Most people have a designated time when they go to grab something to eat. People typically eat around the same times every single day. You need to put in some type of protocol. You need to put in some type of itinerary where you take time to learn, right? Yeah. For me, to be transparent, 6 a.m. is that time for me. That's usually when I get in most of my reading, most of my podcast listening, most of anything that I'm doing to learn something. I do it at that time, right? When it's quiet, I don't have the kids and everyone else distracting me. I can just take that moment to really think critically about what it is that I'm interested in and what I want to do. So it doesn't have to be 6 o'clock in the morning. For you, it can be right before you go to sleep or midway through the day, right? But have an itinerary, just like you would set together an itinerary to take a trip for a vacation, set together a learning itinerary to make sure that you're constantly growing, learning, so you're able to do more and achieve more. So we're running up against the time. And as always, when we're having these conversations with Shelly, we could probably go on for another hour or so.
But hopefully this, allows you to at least take a step back and think through not just, if you've made these mistakes before, or if you're new, what you can do to avoid some of these moving forward, but taking a more critical look around what are you doing? And and if there are things that I think what is really important with this conversation, I think a lot of people who are watching deep down know that they need to shift something, change something, or they're not doing something in the right way. There's always time to fix it, and now is a good day to do it. So hopefully this chat was helpful for you. If you know anyone else who is starting their entrepreneurial journey and this would be a good first lesson, dive in for them, please share it with them as well. Leave your comments. We're happy to chat, and we will talk to you all next week.